Shadow Corner family show, friendly neighborhood life coach, Cyan Gates. I will be hosting this wonderful episode. Why do you ask it's wonderful? Because I have my bestie on the line, my Virgo bestie on the line. To be short, this specific episode, it's self-explanatory. We're going to talk about projections. We're going to talk about expectations and the side effects of them. But the main thing is I want you to keep notes in this situation because this is a very wise woman that you're about to talk to. She does not give her time to many people. So I am grateful that she's giving me her time. So let's go ahead and get this introduction started. I am thrilled to introduce our next guest on Shadow Corner, Miss Tia Wolfe. For this episode, we'll be talking about projections, expectations, and side effects. Tia is a dedicated coach who empowers individuals to break free from their cultural restraints and rediscover their authentic selves. Raised in a single-parent Asian household, Tia faced cultural expectations that demanded silence and conformity, leading her to internalize these constraints and struggle with self-worth. Her journey through depression, people-pleasing, and unfulfilling relationships have given her a profound insight into impact of cultural influences and the mental well-being and personal relationship. Tia's coaching style is deeply rooted in her personal experiences. She emphasizes on the importance of self-awareness and understanding one's unique personality traits and emotional tendencies. By integrating these tools like astrology, she helps clients gain insight into their behaviors, attachment styles, facilitating the transformation of unhealthy patterns into your healthy relationships. Without further ado, let me go ahead and bring out my big dog, Tia Wolfe.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Nothing much. How you like my introduction? I did my research.
Oh my God, that was amazing. I didn't even remember that you had all of this down. I was like, wait, whoa. It was like so foreign because I haven't heard my own introduction in like years. Well, it feels like years. So I'm like,
you'll always have an introduction with me, buddy. You're that special.
Thank you. I really loved it, enjoyed it, and it was really entertaining to hear you.
Yeah.
Like, describe me.
How do I describe Tia? A boss. A boss in her own right.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, T. So tell us can you share a little bit about your journey? What led you to become a coach? And what are some common signs that someone is projecting or doing their emotional feels? But let's start with the beginning. How did Tia become Tia Wolfe, the coach? Where did that come from?
Well, you kind of glazed over my brief introduction, but honestly, for me, I knew that through all of my life experiences, you could either choose to be a victim or you can choose to empower. And I've always been a fighter. I never accepted things for how it is. I didn't believe that life should be how it is, like with so much suffering and then victim blaming and then just like never getting out of the situation that you were born into if you were born from, humble beginnings. So I knew that with all of my experiences, I needed to do something with it, especially because I'm the type of person who refuses to accept defeat. Like, life can give me lemons and I'm going to make it into some sweet lemonade, right?
So, all right now.
So because of that, like, I think a couple years ago, I've gone through like several periods of my life where I've gone in and out of depression, but it wasn't until like a couple years back, I think it was, I want to say like 2019 was when I had a really big spiritual awakening. I mean, I've already kind of been having that through since like 2011 when I was like questioning, why am I here? What's my purpose? What am I supposed to be doing? And during that time I was in finance, but it just like didn't feel right. Like I was missing something more. My soul was craving something more. And I didn't know what it was. I just knew that eventually I would have my own business and that I wanted to make a difference helping people although I had no idea what that would look like either, because you could literally do anything helping people, right? So it wasn't until 2019 where I ended my final last relationship, which was, when I think about it, it's kind of crazy because it's been 5.5 years since I've been single. Specifically chosen to be single because I've been in relationships throughout my whole life since high school. So you can imagine like the codependency, the people pleasing, right? And I was like, okay, my mental health is not okay because my life was always revolving around other people and what they needed from me, that I didn't have an identity. And during that time, I was also going through some deep, deep depression from my previous relationship before my last one. And I don't remember if I've shared with you or on your channel that like I went through some really toxic, abusive times with that ex of mine. I almost lost my life at Chill Code. I literally already blacked out. So I thought I was going to die right then, right there. But the universe has its way of like making sure, when it's not your time to go, things will happen.
Yeah. Ancestor kick you like, whack, get back down there.
Exactly. So luckily, I don't know exactly what happened, but he let me go right when I was not able to breathe anymore. Like I literally blacked out. I had no more energy in me to fight. And I was just like, this is how I'm going to go out. And somehow like, I was still trying to tap his arm like, hey, can't breathe, right? But eventually he did let go. And that was when I was like, I can't believe I went down this path. Like I always thought I was trying to do the right thing. And instead I'm in a position where like I almost lost my life because of a choice I made to be with this person for almost 4 years. So that caused the last depression. And that was like for 2.5 years or so. I was like, who am I? What is my identity? How did I get to this point? And, there was like resentment towards myself, towards the people around me that like allowed me to continue in this, scenario at that time. But at the same time, I realized like, hey, I was really stubborn. I'm sure a lot of my friends during that time was also telling me like, this isn't right, this isn't good. But, we were all in really bad, toxic relationships back then too, in our own unique way, that like, it wasn't like we could really tell each other like, okay, who is right, who is wrong, because we're all kind of attracting similar situations. Obviously none as bad as mine because I almost lost my life and, theirs wasn't abusive in that sense. But, emotional manipulation and like spiritual and mental abuse is like still a thing. It's still abuse. So after I spent the past like 3 years to kind of work through my mental health, to work through that depression, I realized like, okay, like I could really become a mental health coach to kind of help people like navigate through these times, because it's not easy to do it on your own. And I went through a lot of therapy, but there was only one therapist that was like really solid for me personally, because I'm the type of person who knew what I needed to work on, what I've already done, and here is the gap that I can't fill in. Please help me, right? But she like went out of network. So I went through like 8 other therapists and they were just not they were not it. So I started helping myself, self-diagnosing, working through shadow work. And through that, I was like, okay, mental health has become a little bit too heavy for me now to work through. Like I can hold space for other people, but to kind of repeat my stories over and over, it's like you've done all of the healing and now it's just density that like you really don't need to carry in your energetic field anymore. So then I was like, okay, what else can I do? And on the back end, I was into astrology since 2016.
I remember, because that's how we ran into each other.
Yeah,
that was the first conversation we had. We stayed on the phone for like what, 4 hours? 4 hours straight with this woman.
But listen, I was like in the closet about this stuff. Okay, like I've always been a very logical person. So like for me to be in to astrology and spirituality, like I was not feeling safe to like express that side of me. But then I was like, what else could I do? Like, what else do I thoroughly enjoy that like can be life changing? So like I went into astrology, and that was like a good chunk of a year or something like that. But now I am incorporating astrology into relationships because I've been learning about relationships since high school. Like I would go to the library, I would go to like Barnes and Nobles, and I would just like pick up relationship books. And they were just like out of curiosity. So I've like consistently read that stuff throughout my life. On top of like, I was in finance. So I would read a lot of management books, like empowering books, self improvement books, psychology books, like all of that. So I've just kind of, I'm sorry, like this story is like so long.
No, you're good. We literally have plenty of time because, like, go ahead. Just like go into like a gist of towards the end because I know we have a lot to talk about, at least in this episode.
Yeah,
So,
so just to sum it up, pretty much I do astrology, which helps you to come back home to who you are truly, like before all of the conditioning, all of what other people expect from you, and we will get into that, right? But just knowing who you are, and I've realized that not everyone is meant to know who they are like all the time. I'm also into human design for those who are new to that or don't know what that is. It's kind of more scientific based, but it's like knowing your physical body, which I'm really big into. And so like half the world actually is consistent in who they are throughout their entire life, and the other half is like constantly changing their identity because they're growing as a person, because this is what their soul came here to learn. And more on to that if we want to go into it. But just to summarize, pretty much now I'm doing astrology in terms of relationships, as well as just like personal astrology readings as well. With my own twist, I do a lot of channeling, I do a lot of energy work, I do a lot of healing in my sessions as well. Just being in my energy field, you will be moving blocks. And I'm very logical still. So like obviously whatever issues I find and is like coming up will be addressed, and I will give you like step-by-step solutions to how to manage or mitigate or like, go closer to the goals that you want, because that's how you can improve your life, but also like come back to truly like, what are the things that you truly care about? What are the things that you're trying to achieve in this lifetime? Right. And to really like get to know yourself, love yourself, because a lot of times we give ourselves away, which means we're also giving our power away. And I'm very big on like self embodiment of like your own power. And a lot of times, like, it's so easy to be like, okay, well, I want to be in power. Like, I want to be confident, right? That is a form of power. I want to be well spoken. That is another form of power. But like, how are you doing things that are going against what you want? Right. So these are things that I address in my sessions. But yeah, that's pretty much the summary. This is where I am right now. And I'm kind of moving into like energy work for this year, just like a little hint. There's a lot of emotional stuff happening now, right? In terms of trauma, healing, ascension, removing density and all of that. So I'm planning on, this is like not set in stone yet, but for this year, one of my intentions is to be able to like hold more space emotionally for people where, the world is like in chaos right now. So, but yeah, that's my quick but not quick summary.
no, you are fine. That's why, like, that is my job here. That's why in the beginning it says, "Welcome to your new safe space," because I try to give the safe space not only for my clients, but I try to also do the same safe space with my friends and family, because they need to know that it's like, yes, you're fighting the battles outside this room, but just understand that at least you have a place that you come. Literally, I have customized this room to represent who I am, but at the same time, when you walk in, you feel the difference.
Yep.
You'll always feel the difference. But
Exactly.
let's shift gears in this thing. So can you tell me what are some signs that someone is projecting their emotions or fears on you, or like how to like check it at the door. Because me personally, I'd be like, yeah, no, no. Last time I checked, my DNA was not. My DNA is not scared of much, but it's sure not scared of that. So but that's just me because I'm petty like that. So how do you shut that down at the door respectfully, and then like what are some signs of projection and everything in between?
Well, the first thing is to know that like you are even being projected on. And the thing is, like, sometimes you might not even be aware that you're projecting onto other people as well. So my biggest thing is that really you? Like, when they're saying something, do you identify with that? Is that really true? Or is that something you want to have come true? Or like you do notice like, oh, that's not me, right? So like one of the examples I see is like when people project onto me, it's a very clear evident is like, for example, I have done a lot of self work to know what is me and what is not, right? And if you still have those people pleasing skills, those lines blur really quickly. But when you are comfortable in knowing the good and the bad of you, right? The things that you may not want to accept, but also the things that you do really love and value about yourself, then you kind of have to look at what they're saying. Is that something that you actually believe you are? And the projections are always going to happen to some degree, right? We can't remove it completely because some of us are walking mirrors for other people. So, in what you see in other people, there is a version of that that is within you, whether it's the opposite, whether it's similar, whether it's parallel, whatever it is. So, you kind of have to slow yourself down and like check and like think about it really for a second, or even feel it in your body. Although I don't recommend that for people who store a lot of trauma in their body and haven't worked through that, because when your body goes through a lot of trauma, it's sending false signals. Like you may think you're in danger when you're not actually, but it's because your body's sensors are all disoriented from all of the trauma you've endured. So
Is it similar to the fight or flight type of situation?
yeah, in some cases it is, but also like let's say you've been in an abusive relationship, for example, right? The next person you are with, right? They make you feel so safe by like listening to you, giving you space to speak and express yourself. Your body's going to freak out because you've never had somebody who gave you this space to speak up, to feel safe to express yourself without somebody yelling at you or like wanting to argue with you about what you want to talk about, right? So then their body is like, what is going on? Yeah. So that's like one way of how your body is, the circuits are all disoriented, is because you went through trauma that now your body doesn't know what's wrong or right. And during these cases, it actually takes away your power. And other people who are like narcissists or like people who feed off weak people, you would be a prime target because you're actually confusing yourself even more by not being able to discern what is true and what is not. So the same is true for projections. You not being aware of like how you are, because the hardest thing is to accept ourselves, like for the good and the bad. But that's like the best way for you to discern whether people are projecting onto you or not. You may not like the bad sides of you, right? We all have sides, we all have shadows, and not every one of us like that. Sometimes we hide it in the closet. But if you're lying to yourself, then these projections, you're going to think is true, because you can't even face the reality of who you are. But once you face the truth of who you are, then you will know that these people are projecting onto you. So going back, I think I like skipped the example. One of the things that my friends project onto me really commonly is that they think I'm secretive. Now, these are like really close friends of mine who think I'm secretive. And I think it's really funny because if you're a close friend of mine, I always tell you everything. Like everything that's happening in my life, I tell you because you're one of my close friends. But they still see me as being secretive. And here's the thing. That's a projection for sure. But also know I am aware that I am reserved. I am not the type of person to just air out my dirty laundry, right? Like, let's say I'm struggling. Every time I see you, I'm not going to talk about the fact that I'm struggling, even if I am, right? Because, like, nobody wants to hear that, right? Like, when you want to hang out with your friends, you guys want to have good times, good vibes. And that's not to say, like, we're avoiding, anything past surface level, right? Like, you guys can still have deep conversations. And, like, I would still let them know, hey, I'm struggling, right? But I'm not going to bring it up every single time. So because they feel that, like, and it is a reflection of them. If they're going through something, that's all they talk about, right? And that's fair. That's who they are. And to recognize that that is who they are. It doesn't mean I'm secretive, but they are projecting that onto me because if they're not saying things, right, that's happening to them, but they want to continue saying, whatever it is that's happening all the time, every time I see them, then they're going to see that they're hiding something. And chances are they probably are hiding stuff from me too, right? Because for me, it's like I'm an open book. If I'm an open book, that triggers people who doesn't feel safe to express the dark side of themselves. And for me, it's like I'm very honest about like what isn't good for me or like the things that I don't like, the shadow parts of me, But like again, you have to know yourself. And the only way you can even know yourself is like acceptance of like the good and the bad and the ugly and everything in between. If you don't know that, right, you're not going to realize that people are projecting onto you.
No, I get that. That's why I was like, I'm sitting here like, yeah, I'm pinning up things in my head like a chalkboard. I didn't hold you. I'm pinning like I have like my vision board in front of me because like I've had the same thing where it's like my friends, I like friends directly, like friends back then they would say like, oh well, your man has to be, and they're like so intriguing about why I don't talk about my sex life, why I don't talk about like too much of my family, like because I'm reserved like that. I don't really say anything unless like the thing pertains to me, because it's like how I put it the best way. Everything does not have to be aired on grand TV. There are some parts of yourself as well as parts of life that you can keep for yourself. I know one of my friends, they don't post their children because they want to keep them safe from that side, but their children know about social media, they know about TikTok, they know about all that stuff, but they keep them as a child first. And it's like some adults, I think at this point right now, we're at a point in technology where we have so much issue with once we get something, we have to post it instead of like trying to say, hey, although I love this, I would rather try to like keep it for myself because everybody's intention on like, yay, good job, it's not always going to be the same. Sometimes you're going to have people that's going to want it more than you or say, hey, you don't deserve it because of said line here. So it's like I keep things to myself. No one has to know everything about me. But if you ask me, I only give you what I have permission from myself, a social contract that I have with myself to give. Right. So it's not, I think we're just at a point right now where projections also comes from like social media posts. It's like we have these expectations to be a certain style, body type, archetype, dom, sub, whatever, all that other stuff. It really don't matter. The important thing is to know exactly who you are, how you operate, and how you handle situations with either emotional intelligence or just handling situations to where it's like you can process that thing right then and there and you don't have to lash out on others.
Correct. I agree.
So shifting gears when it comes to expectation. Now, as I state, like for expectations, we all have some type of form of expectation that we have not only for ourselves, like a mini goal, but also some people have expectations. I have friends that will tell you that no matter the situation, I will show up out of thin air. And then they will be like, see, I knew I can count on you. I knew I can do this because I like built a rapport with them to where they know that yes, I am your friend. I'm gonna show up. I'm gonna be the loudest person in the background with the giant note card, just waving it like, yes, my bestie did it, or the game my friend did it. Cause like I believe in you just as much as you believe. I believe in you more than you believe in yourself. Sometimes I don't know how much you believe yourself until you tell me. But no, because like I get that where they was like, you have so much faith in me. Yes. Because I want you to tear this thing up. Show them who you are. Like,
Yep.
don't show your behind, but just show them who you are. Just like run this. You
Yeah.
have all that energy. But why do you think that we often set unrealistic expectations for ourselves and others?
So I have a couple theories to this, but I think the first one, being the strongest one, in my opinion, is that it's easy to, it's one of those things where like you want to be seen as like a good person. But then when it's unrealistic, you know it's unrealistic. Everybody knows it's unrealistic, so you don't have to work for it.
Wait,
Okay.
that caught me off guard. Run that back. Say it with the megaphone.
It's just not like, okay, when you, here's the thing, like people tend to lie to themselves a lot, okay? And there's pros and cons to it, right? Sometimes, you know, the words fake it till you make it is true. And it does happen sometimes, depends on the person, right? You gotta embody that before you are actually that. And it does work to some degree. But for other people, when they set too high of an expectation, everybody knows they're not going to do it, right? They know they're not going to do it. And that gives them permission to not do it. Because if it's unrealistic to other people, it's unrealistic for themselves. So then it gives them that permission of like, well, you know, that's like too hard. Most people can't do it. Like if anybody was me, they wouldn't be able to do it. And they would just be like, okay, well, I don't need to meet these expectations. But like the intent is there, right? Like I have good intentions to have this accomplished or to get this thing done, right? And then in terms of like unrealistic expectations to other people, I think one of the things is, again, it's like a reflection of yourself, right? When you don't have realistic expectations of yourself, then most likely you don't have realistic expectations of other people because we are the hardest to ourselves first. And how we see ourselves, how we view ourselves, take care of ourselves, or don't take care of ourselves is also reflected towards the people around us. If we can't show up for ourselves, 9 times out of 10, we're not showing up for other people. Now, there are always going to be those like empaths or people who like are people pleasers who will literally compromise everything of themselves for other people. But in the end,
Blame the people for you making that decision.
right. Because they're like, okay, well, these people have expectations of me. I have to do this. I need to do that. This person needs me. And you know, it's a great way to sound like a good person, except for the fact that you are lying to yourself and running away from yourself. Because and you know, the thing is like, there's a reason why when COVID happened, right? And a lot of people were locked down and at home, they went crazy, they went depressed. There was like, you know, the drinking and drugs like literally took off, right? People are so afraid to face themselves. People are so afraid to find out things about themselves that they've stuffed down for years because they want to be seen as a good person. Okay, so even like those who are people pleasers, those who over compromise themselves and are doing the most for other people, let's be real. The more you do, the more other people expect from you. because you've shown up again and again and again. And if these other people you're showing up for isn't showing up for themselves, then now you're carrying the burden of their stuff, everybody else's stuff that you're also taking care of, and then ignoring your own. But you know, what you're doing is also adding more karma on yourself, because you are taking away their lessons that they should be learning for themselves, and you are running away from your own. So now you're doing more work than you should. And then again, like, the victim mentality is like, oh my God, like, I never have time for me. Oh my God, like, nobody ever cares about me. Well, you don't care about yourself. Why do other people need to care about you? You know, and that's like a hard reality.
And I'm glad you said something about that, because I noticed that there was at one point in my life I was like helping a friend out a lot, and I noticed that when I helped, I started slowly but surely forget the end goal of why I was like busting my behind for what I wanted. And then in the end result, I even though like she had a even though she like had a husband and child and people to help her, it's like I guess internally it was something different for her. So when I stopped helping her, and she was like blowing the phone, she was like, "Hey, why you stop talking to me? Why did you stop doing this? I thought we were friends." And I'm like, "We are friends, but I don't want to be around you so much to the point where I end up forgetting who I am, because then my world revolves around you instead of myself." And then little by little, I start to miss pieces of myself, which in return makes it hard for me personally to get back to me, because the journey back to you is the hardest. And I'm to like from experience, the journey back to you is the hardest thing that you can ever do, because now you have to face like the 6-year-old self, or the 16-year-old that didn't have a voice, or the 22-year-old that felt like no matter what she did, it was a failure. Like, these are layers upon layers of things that you'll have to have no choice but to face.
Mm-hmm. But it is the most fulfilling journey. Like, because you're just battling yourself, and at the end of it, you are your own best friend. It's not pretty. You're gonna find things about yourself that you're like, oh, I didn't know this was like in my life. I didn't know this part of me existed. But at the same time, you could also see flowers. You could also see like beautiful sunshine sometimes. You could be like, oh, you know, I used to do this and I miss it. I used to be really good at this. I can't believe I gave it up. You know, and these things, these like beautiful, you know, highs and lows of life, of your own life journey, is one of the most hardest but amazing feeling by the end of it, because like once you realize how much power you have, once you realize like, wow, you are a amazing person and you're so in love with yourself by the end of this. And I mean, it's like a forever journey, right? Like we're only in our 30s. Can you imagine what it seems like, or what it would be like when we're in our 60s, and like we are so nonchalant about like who we are? Like, this is just who we are. You either fuck with, well, I don't know if I can say the F word. Sorry.
I mean, let it go, let it go, let it go, let it go, let it
But
go.
like, either you're with us or you're not, you know?
Right.
And that's a beautiful place to be in, because that is truly when you're in your own power. And that's not to say like, you know, in your 60s you still won't be like coming up against things, but like you're gonna be at such a different place of your life. Like, it's crazy. Me right now is like looking at my 20-year-old self, like, why did I care about these things? None of that stuff mattered once I hit my 30s, you know, none of it.
Oh
And
my
then
god.
you like look back, like, but you know, it is a process. Like, every single person has gone through that in their life, where they're like, oh my God, I can't believe I cared about this. And again, it's like expectations from other people, right? Like you are expected to care about this. You need to care about this because that's what makes you a good person. Like at the end of the day, a lot of us, 80% of us or something like that, want to be a good person. And they will do things against their own beliefs to prove to others and even themselves that they're a good person. But it isn't until you accept that for as much light as we also have an equal part of dark. That's where you're truly just you. And being you means there's going to be light and darkness. And it's not good or bad, it just is.
It just makes you more potency of you.
Yes. And that's where you step into your power because power is both light and dark at the same time. It's not just one thing. I mean, look at it. Like, there's people who rise in power who is labeled bad, but they are still in power, right? There are people who are labeled good, but they're also still in power. So power doesn't take form of good or bad. That's just our perception being taught to us. Usually, you hear power hungry, bad, right? But is it really bad if you're power hungry to really try and help other people to make a difference in their life? It's not as bad as it sounds, but because we are taught, we are being conditioned to believe and think a certain way. There are certain things that you have to look at yourself being like, do I actually agree with that? Or is that what's been taught to me? And you won't actually know just yet because of all of the years, however many years you've been alive, of conditioning by other people. You may not even know. But those little layers of your onion being peeled back, slowly but surely, you will start to realize more and more things about yourself that's like, hey, I don't actually believe in this. But you need to be by yourself to look at that. Because as long as you're by or around other people, you're never going to truly be able to see the you. Because as long as you're with other people, there's always going to be some form of expectation of you.
Okay, so let's shift focus on that. How does projection and expectation tie into self-worth and self-sabotage? But we already like covered that in a way because we already know like when it comes to expectation, if you set too much of an expectation that you know for a fact that you're not going to be able to take, you're already setting yourself up for mental delude. And then if someone has this high projection of you being this good person and this high projection of you can't do no wrong, and then the moment you do something wrong, you again put yourself back into that mental interlude saying that, oh, I ain't nothing, I don't think I'm ever be anything, I don't think I'm going to like be worth anything, this is all such a weird thing or whatever the saying is, then we become into the victim mentality, like you were stating. So what do you think, how the self-worth and self-sabotage tie into both of these topics?
So I think if you have low self-worth, you are more prone to projections, whether it's people projecting onto you or you wanting to fulfill their projections. And then when it comes to self-sabotage, it's via expectations. And what I mean by that is like when you have expectations, I mean, I already kind of covered a little bit of it, but I could go further in. When you go into any scenario with some sort of expectation, if you don't value yourself or know who you are and what you have to offer, and your range of your value, quote unquote, is to be compared to other people, then that's a form of self sabotage. And no matter what, you're going to have unrealistic expectations that you could either, over deliver, overachieve, but then at the cost of you, at the cost of being burnt out. Or you just start beating yourself up and never even try to meet those expectations because you already decided you're not going to meet those expectations and you can't because whatever story you're telling yourself is going to like set that off before you even tried. So I know there's like a science experiment When you think happy things, right? And then you stick out your arm and somebody press down, you're actually resisting it, right? But if you start thinking negative thoughts or like bad things about yourself and somebody presses on you again, your arm is automatically going to drop. And that is like the power of your mind, your belief system, and your worth. If you are strong in yourself, that force isn't going to affect you because you have this aura of strength that is protecting you from outside things, right? But if you have a weak mindset of, or like ill viewed mindset of yourself, like you think really low of yourself, or you're self sabotaging yourself, when somebody puts that pressure, your body's going to cave because you already don't have the fundamentals of that foundation that is keeping you strong. So when anything comes towards you, you are just going to shrink. You are going to like plummet. So when it comes to projections and expectations with that self-worth and self-sabotage, they are all tied together, but at the same time, even without it, because I think the cause, well, I mean, cause and effect can also like interweave within each other. But when you have self-worth, when you have high self-worth, when other people project onto you, you're going to call it out. You're going to tell them to cut that crap because that is not you. Don't even try to project onto me, or you're going to walk away because you know that's not what you identify with and you're not going to, accept that. Right. So you are setting the tone in how other people perceive you. You can't control how they see you altogether, right? There's always going to be some layer of projection because how people see you is always how they see themselves in some variation, right? And then expectations is how you choose to show up, right? If they see you as somebody who's strong, that's an expectation because you've already set that tone for them to expect that from you. You didn't really do anything. You're just, present, but people feel that, The same is true for the weaker end. When you self-sabotage, people feel that. People know that through your choices, your actions, the way you move, right? So you're setting that expectation for other people either not to depend on you or know that they need to help you or that they can use you, whatever it may be. You are setting that expectation for others. And then again, it's because it's a relation to yourself and the other person, there's always going to be like this juggle piece. So even if you're the same way to two different people, depending on how their perceptions are of themselves, they will view you in a slightly or drastically different lens, even though you are still the same person to both and you are behaving the same way to both. Although it's really not practical because you're always going to be changing a little bit per person. But let's just say in an ideal scenario, right? You are the same person to two different people. They're going to see you differently. And you're also going to have different expectations of them too, because they are different people. So I don't know if that covers it.
No, that covered it very well because, the one main expectation that I can compare with, at least in this situation, was the fact of me being the strong. So it was like the person to figure everything out and then everything works out. I didn't put that expectation on myself because I was like, some days it was like my head was going to explode. And then other days it was like, this actually did work out. Hallelujah. That works. But that was the expectation. And then when I had my weak moment where I was like, from this point on, I'm not going to be strong backman. I don't want no part of it. I'm on vacation. I ain't got it. Then they're like, wait, what do you mean? What do you mean you're taking a vacation? I was like, oh, because I do too much. Like it's a little. It's not something that I personally wanted to carry. This is something that you gave me. You're like, well, I can't do any wrong. And this is also rooting back to like, if anybody has heard the podcast episode where I talked about like my family trauma, where it was like my sister put out in the universe the expectation of my mother having a perfect child because I went to college, I had a car, I had an apartment, I had all these things that she wanted for her because she was the oldest. And then the youngest ended up getting every single thing plus more. And she was like, well, mama, you have your perfect daughter. She didn't have any kids out of wedlock. She has a boyfriend, she has an apartment, she got a job, she's in school, she has her own car. You got what you wanted. And I'm sitting here like, okay, so in my mind, that had to process like, okay, so from this point on, I can't, excuse my French, I can't fuck up even if I wanted to. Then no, I'm talking like I could not screw up even if I wanted to, because then that would mean the pinnacle of what my sister was saying. And my mom told me after we've had like years of conversation, she was like, you didn't have to have that expectation. I was like, but you didn't shut her down when she put it out there either.
Yep.
So it's like it's a two-way street, and there was 3 heads on that street. You could have shut that one down and say, I'm not expecting that of you. I just want you to live your life. That's what I was like, me personally expecting of you, but at the same time, I can't expect that of you because I didn't even know that's what I needed at the time. It didn't take but years to understand that 20-year-old Cyan needed that compared to like the 30-year-old Cyan now that's like, oh, okay, so I could have said something. I could have checked her myself, but you mama, so that's your job. But I completely feel it. And I think for some people, and then this is like me saying this live, you need to, in so many words, check on your strong friends, you people you feel like is weaker friends, the ones that you set a expectation that you, because of their history and their track record, that you don't think that they'll have a moment of downing. You need to check on them. You need to start reciprocating that energy, especially if they invested so much time and stuff into you that they could have did other things with. So it's something that I feel like with this episode that needs to be said. You really need to look at your circle and identify the weakest link and identify who could be next. And it's not to say that the person is weak. It's to say like identify the person that needs the help, but make sure that you don't sit here and invest so much time that you forget yourself, your values, and everything that you care for that, specifically that person, and also not forget about your responsibilities, your things. Like that type of stuff, it takes a giant toll on it.
So, and I was telling you too, I'm like, you can't be doing all of that. Like you're only getting older, and you got to start putting yourself first. Because as Virgos, we be doing a lot. We've been doing a lot for the people that we care about, and sometimes like
because we like the mommy complex. It's like we don't want to see them get hurt, and it's hard, and it's not the fact that I don't want to see you go through things. I do. It's like I have helicopter supervision. I can't help it because like I wish I had siblings that did that for me, like chin check me and be like, hey, listen, you get a little too far, you could have handled it better, but I had to learn from experience to know like, hey, this is when to stop, this is when to go. And then Tia, you've helped me a lot with that type of stuff anyway. She chin checks me respectfully, everyone. I can see that. Like, she's like, girl, you are doing too much. You hear me? I'm like, I didn't think I was. She's like, yes, I need you to reel that back. Remind yourself who you are, and then get back on your shit. Okay, I'm back. I'm sorry.
Okay, so just for everyone listening, I am very protective of my friends, and I don't care if you have friends. Obviously, everybody has friends, right? But like, I only care about you. I don't care about your friends. No offense. Like, I don't know them, right? Personally, they are not part of like who I've chosen to associate myself with. But I associate myself with. So like, if I feel like anybody is taking advantage of my friends, I'm gonna say something. I'm going to do something. I'm gonna let you know. I'm not gonna tell you like, hey, you gotta do this right now. But I'm just gonna let you know that, hey, FYI,
It's
if
getting
you
to
want
that
to put
point.
yourself first, FYI, if Cheyenne still wants to have time and like, not have a burnout, not have like a mental breakdown, probably need to tone back some of
Right.
the stuff you're doing. And also, they're adults. You are not going to do everything for them, and you're only getting older. You're gonna get married, you're gonna have kids. Are they gonna still call you up when you have a family that you are responsible for? When you have your own business, you're still responsible for? What about like all the other things you have to take care of, right? And then, you're still taking care of your parents and stuff like that, and whatever else. Like, you still want to have alone time, you want to have time for you, right? You still got to take care of yourself, nurture yourself, right? Like, these people cannot be depending on you forever. And some of these people have been depending on you for a couple years now. Quote unquote, not going to address anybody specifically, but like, they're getting older, they're not 5. And this is actually something I had to learn too, like over the past 4-ish months or so. It is so painful to watch people suffer and go through things. And it is actually very selfish of us to want to help them, actually. And it sounds crazy, right? Like, oh, we're being so selfless trying to help them. But we're actually being selfish because we don't like the feeling of watching other people suffer. And that's the selfishness in us, right? We are trying to fix a problem for them, solve their issues, because we don't like the uncomfort of having to watch them suffer. And like, again, it goes back to like, we want to be a good person, right? So like, if you want to be a good person, to be selfless, you should be helping them. But no, like, I had to face the fact that like, there are going to be people who don't want your help, who wants to go through it. They won't admit that they want to suffer, right? But if they're coming to you for help and they're not doing what you're telling them to, right? After they've went to you for advice, for guidance, for help, they're choosing to suffer. They're just not going to admit it, but they're choosing to suffer, right? Because they clearly went to you asking for help, knowing that you have the solution, right? So
Right.
to do that and then not do what you said is a slap in your face for disrespecting you, for not honoring your advice, wasting your time, and then have the audacity to be like, you know what? I don't need your help. I want to suffer. And by the way, watch me suffer. Like,
Okay, so let's jump into this. What is one small practical exercise or mind shift that someone can do to implement like today, especially in today's society? What's some exercise that you can do to implement like the rejecting the expectations, rejecting the projections, and making sure that you stand 10 toes down on business when it comes down to yourself? So what is something that they can do like to break out of those patterns, giving it like when you give them that advice?
the biggest, most impactful thing I would say is get a piece of paper and start writing. Write all of what you see yourself as. What do you want to identify with? What do you not want to identify with? What are things that you're still trying to figure out and play around with? Like, get really honest with yourself about the good things and the bad things and the in between. This is in some form shadow work as well. But again, I'm very big on, if you don't know who you are, you're going to face countless expectations and projections. And here's the thing, not every projection is bad, not every expectation is bad. Which ones of those do you want to fulfill, right? So that these people still expect these things from you, and you are willing to accept that projection. And what are things that you keep hearing? Like, you kind of have to slow down and really be more observant, right, of your surroundings, of the things people say to you at that point, to really recognize what is a pattern that people are projecting onto me. What is a pattern that people do expect from me? Is this something that you really want in your life? Like, one of the things that I always say is like, I'm always going to be there for you, no matter what time, when, whatever, right? And over these
Right.
past few years, that have changed because I realized all of my friends in the past, most of them are no longer in my life. When I showed up for them, when I needed them, they were nowhere. They were nowhere to be found. And I'm not saying that I do things so that they can do things in return for me, but I do have a baseline expectation of what friends are. It doesn't matter who you are, there is a baseline expectation of what being a friend to me means. And that means you're going to show up when you can, right? I don't need you all the time. But if you're never available, you're not my friend. If you're somebody who's not trying to grow with me, right? Or like when you tell me your issues, your problems, and you don't respect what I'm saying, don't ask me for help. Don't ask me for advice. We can still be friends. Don't ask me because that's going to be pissing me off, right? These are expectations I have of my friends. It doesn't matter who you are. These are expectations I have of my friend. And I expect my friends to also grow with me because one of my values, right, is I'm big on growing, improving myself. So the only people that should be in alignment to me that are in my space are also people who want to grow, who want to expand, who want to be better, who want to live a better life, you know? And these are all things you should like really be sitting down to kind of break it down to know. And I no longer hold that, you know, expectation of other people from me of I'm going to be there all the time because I've learned that people started becoming dependent on me rather than them doing the work on their own sometimes. I can't hold your hand all the time. I was over compromising myself, my energy, my space for other people, and they didn't value it to the amount of energy that I have put out for them. I will still be there for my friends, especially if it is urgent. There's no problem with that, you know, but there are more boundaries around this now because I have learned from the past that people don't appreciate. People are not grateful. They don't even know what that means. But then they expect you to be grateful for them, to appreciate them. They think they're the, you know, main character, right? But we're all
Mhm.
main characters of our own life. So when we allow other people into our energy, give them our time, it is a privilege just as much as I love having you as a friend, right? And we
Mhm.
spend time together. It is a privilege for me to be in your life, just as much as it is a privilege for you to be in my life. Because with us like, you know, being in each other's lives, we are not helping each other, you know, in the way that we specifically know how to, that is unique to us, that is bringing in more enrichment per se, right? So
Mhm.
I think people forget that and some people tend to be really entitled. And I just want people to like realize when you're writing these things down, like what is it that you don't want any more of? Like set your boundaries. Again, get very clear. And maybe you don't know everything, right? That's normal. We don't know everything. Um and that's okay. But the things that you are sure of, the things that is a no bueno, no compromise, set that down. Look at that piece of paper every day. And also, actually, I want to also add one more thing.
Okay.
On the top, set a goal for yourself. Like for like one of the goals that I have for this year, this is a new thing I'm doing. One of the goals that I am having this year is, and I know it's going to be something I'm going to carry over every single year going forward, is check in with my energy first thing in the morning. Assess how much energy I have and what I can give to. So then when things come up last minute, now I'm viewing, do I have the energy for this? Do I want to do this? Or like I just cannot because if I do that, then I'm compromising myself now. So I want you guys to at least have one goal. It could be anything. It could be really simple. Like, I choose to be happy every day, and everything I do in a day is going to add to this happiness. It could be very simple things. And it doesn't mean that, like, if you don't do it, right, that you have failed, right? Sometimes we don't have good days. Everybody doesn't have good days all the time, right? Like, I don't either. Some days I wake up, I'm like, I just want to go to bed and that's it. Like, I don't even want to have this day. Like, I just want to skip the day. And that's okay. We're not here to be like 100% anal on every single thing. Life is fluid. Allow that. Okay? Don't be too hard on yourself, but also know, like, have some structure. So yeah. Sorry, I know that's another
Oh no,
one.
you fine too. When you speak facts, I'm quiet. But no, like that's also the reason why I tell my clients and I tell people that I interact with is that when it comes to people, places, and things, you have to have what's called a social contract. If you do not know what a social contract is, there's an episode on my podcast about social contracts with people, family members, the whole nine. Basically, I'm going to give you the shortest version I know. A social contract is your contract with not only yourself, but your interactions with the people that you choose to let them in your space. Whether we know it or not, we exchange energy through little things, as in laughing, talking. Sometimes it could be in the midst of in the devil's tango. Either way, like, we exchange energy in so many different forms that we need to be more clairvoyant about this, like very clear about what it is we want from the exchange, but what we're getting out of the exchange. And it's not to say like you have to get something out of an exchange every time. It's just a fact of, if you're trying to invest time into being someone's friend, like Tia says, there's some contracts that you're going to have to honor. And if their honoring is that you show up, then that's a main key. I tell people all the time, like, I don't like liars, I don't like cheaters, and I don't like people that aren't 100 me. These are 3 parts of my social contract, because I've had people lie to me. I've had people cheat me out of things, opportunities, and things, and then they expect me to still be the same person they met. Mm-hmm. And like the people that aren't 100 me, 100 can mean in so many different ways, as in like being your authentic self 24/7, 365. Understand that you have down days, but you also have to get into the factor of knowing that you are the only person that's going to be able to hold yourself accountable for the things you don't know, for the things that you do know, especially if it's about yourself, and the interactions you have with people. And you can't put people in the hot box of things that they did not know about you, or spaz on them for that, because that's their responsibility. It's your responsibility to relay the message, and it's up to them to receive it or not and make the decision whether or not they're going to actually interact with that. And when they do that, they make the decision for themselves, not just for you. So I know that we've been at like an hour and 4 minutes, but as always, Tia is the boss when it comes down to these relationship and cosmo things. So I got one question and then we'll wrap up. So how does your astrology notion come to play in this? Like when it comes to these types of things, does it help you avoid these magnets? Does it help you like keep them at a wall? Like how do we intertwine like astrology in this? Because like there are some people that feel like the generation before, or our generation in general, rely too much on astrology to dissect things, but like you don't realize. Understandably, yes, your astrology shine does not make up everything, but you also have to take in a key factor of like how that person was raised, how that person interacts with people because of where their parents, how they interact, how they interact with their siblings. Like you take all that into account. Their zodiac sign isn't the only thing, but how does that pertain to that?
So I want to clarify, when people hear astrology, they usually just think your sun sign. But when I talk about astrology, and most astrologers will tell you this, they're looking at a whole birth chart, right? And the birth chart is set right? From the day, time, and place that you are born. But we also have transits, and transits is like what's happening in the sky right now that's affecting you. So when I look at somebody's birth chart, and I have all of my friends' birth charts, unless they don't know their birth time. And the reason I do this, excuse me, is because it helps me to understand them better. Because I've been doing astrology since 2016, most of it like in the closet, right? Like in the closet, spiritual astrologist. I've been doing it for so long that I don't need astrology to know somebody anymore. Because patterns are patterns, and I recognize patterns very well. So when I see certain people act a certain way or do something, I don't know what that is. It just shrunk.
Yeah, I shrunk you. Don't be alarmed. I have shrunk you.
Okay. Yeah, so because of that, like it allows me to understand a person. And yes, I completely 100% agree with you that it also depends on the nature of their relationships with their environment, their parents, their romance relationships, their friendships even, right? And like the society that they are in, the environment slash even country, city that they live in, or like, you know, whether they moved around a lot. There's so much at play. And so like I don't rely on astrology alone, but I can get a lot from a birth chart. Now, just because you look at a birth chart, there is still a million different, I don't want to say a million, but like hundreds maybe of combinations of how the energies play out. A birth chart isn't 100% in the sense of like, this is who you are exactly. Because when you look at a birth chart, right, it shows you the top potential that you can be at. But you could be somewhere in the middle, right? You could be even on the lower octave of all of the energies at play with your birth chart. And the astrologer will read that, right? But the way I read charts is I tap into their energetic field. So my reading, you could give me a birth chart, two of the same exact birth charts, two different people, but I will give them two very separate readings because when I tap into their energy, I know who they are. I see them for who they are, what they've gone through, what they've experienced. Even though the birth charts are the same, it's being interpreted differently. So I don't know if I answered your question actually, because I kind of forgot what it was.
No. Oh, it's saying okay. So the question, Nately, is astrology the only way? The question was like, is astrology the only way to actually know gate from people that like to project on you that these little over expectations, or is it just the fact of you have to not only know yourself and your no-goes, but you also have to know that these things come into play? Because like for a person that has like, I have a big family, so it's like we're all about like laughing, joking, playing, but we still love each other at the end of the day. So I come in my relationship to that because I want to experience the person that I'm talking to. But when someone says, okay, but I'm a Scorpio and I know that's, so with you, they'll be like, you Scorpios, you have a tendency to be sneaky and all this other stuff. Like, does that counteract with the energy that I came in with?
I think people need to understand. So, to your example, right, when we talk about you're a Scorpio, so you're sneaky, that's a lower vibration Scorpio. Until you really tap into their energy and what they've been through, you don't know if they're actually going to be a sneaky Scorpio or a Phoenix Scorpio, which is they've done all of the transformations, they got through hell and back and have now transcended into like a wise, I step away from what is going on, but I am still, you know, being from the eagle's eye, I see and I will intervene when I need to, right? There's so many variations of just one sign that if you were just to assess them alone based off of that, it is completely inaccurate. So astrology can support the projections and expectations. What I mean by that is there are certain signs that are more prone to being projected on and having higher expectations than those who aren't of those signs. For example, like the sign of Libra, generally a people pleaser. Not saying every single Libra is, not saying any, and you got to realize like everybody has all 12 signs, just in different houses of their chart. So to say like, oh, I don't have a Sagittarius placement, it's like we all do, just in different houses, right? So we all embody some form of each sign. Just some are more pronounced than others because if you have a cluster of planets or signs all in one area, then it's going to be more prominent than other parts. But everybody is a people pleaser to some extent. Some people to some degree, right? Others not so much. If they're a Libra stellium, which means 3 or more planets, more likely they're going to be a people pleaser. Pisces, another sign that would be highly more of a people pleaser. Again, depending on their experience as well. They may have realized, okay, I've been a doormat to all these people. They've treated me terribly. I choose not to be a people pleaser anymore, right? You won't know that just by looking at a birth chart because you don't know to what extent they are at their octaves, whether they're on the lower vibration, higher vibration, somewhere in the middle, and there's so many little nuances to it that a birth chart isn't going to tell you everything unless you can read energy and tap in as well. So there's that. And then we want to account for like the environmentals, right? Because I am also really big on being in the body. What do we experience every day? Because when people look at like my birth chart, for example, I have a Taurus IC, which is like, oh, in your home life, it was stable. It was very luxurious. You have stability, you have security, all of that. But that was not true. That was not true at all in my life. I've moved around my entire life, right? And that's a very big reflection on not only the transits, because during my youth, I had Pluto transit my 11th house. So I was constantly moving because 11th house, it was in Sagittarius for me. It means like, okay, I'm just kind of like, I have friends all over the place. I'm traveling. And that's just like, again, very basic astrology. But essentially, there's so much more. So you don't want to just look at astrology and like, hey, this is facts, and facts, right? It can be, but how the energies play out is very dependent on you, dependent on your free will. Now, you got to also realize your birth chart is the true essence of your soul. If you've been conditioned to be so far away from that, this birth chart isn't going to feel like you. Maybe some parts of it may be true, but if you are not living how your soul was expecting you to live, you're not going to identify with it. So when it comes to projections and expectations, right? Depending on your birth chart, certain charts will look like it's going to have more projections and more expectations on those people than other people. But we still want to account for how are we showing up? How are we carrying ourselves? That will also decide to the factor of how much projection you're getting, to what extent you even want to, reach for those expectations, right? Like Capricorn, for example, is a sign that is known to be like climbing to the top. But I know Capricorns who don't want to do anything, who doesn't want to achieve anything. Why? There could be so many different reasons. Could be family factors, could be that, there's other placements that like neutralize that or even like lessen the strength of a Capricorn sun or whatever, right? I don't want people to like astrology. And it's funny because like I've been studying astrology for 9 years. Astrology to me has helped me ground spirituality into my life, to the point where now I don't need astrology to support my spiritual growth. But I use it because a lot of people need things in the physical to prove to them that spirituality exists. Because we have been taught to not believe in things that we can't see.
Oh, yeah, because it's considered the devil on our end over here in the South.
Yeah, and in religion in general. So, yeah. I hope that answered your question.
It did. It gave a lot more detailed answer. It gave me a detailed answer than I needed, because I want others to understand, because I've had interactions where I would sit here and talk about, like, I'm a Virgo, but the first thing they think of is the toxic Virgo. The one as if it has to be all about me, me, me. And I'm like, no. If in actuality, I was raised in a household where it's like I was selfless. And the religion that I practiced before I knew what religion was versus spirituality, that was something that being selfless in this religion and Christianity was like, it felt like the highest order. You had literally not much freedom, but you had as much freedom as it got, if that makes any sense. So it made it hard for me to actually center myself, because I was like, am I being selfish for not helping this person, knowing that I have the time, but I just told them I don't have the time right now. But I am right. I really don't have. And it's like I'm bartering with myself back and forth about what is true and what is not. And then to a point where I'm just sitting here like, now I'm like, hey, I'm in my 30s and I'm just sitting here like, look, I'll be honest with you. I ain't got the energy nor the mental space for it. I'm going to have to hit you up on the flip. And it's like, someone is like, okay, cool. I understand. And I'm looking at it like, okay, as long as you understand, like, I'm here for you, but just know at this mental capacity, I ain't got it. I truly don't. So I feel like, in short, me and Tia are both letting you know that projections don't define you, the expectations don't define you, and the side effects are only as potent as what power you get. And majority of the time, it's usually put on by people that have this expectation of themselves, and then since they can't fulfill it, they'll put it on you as an assignment. That is the notion where you just drop it because it doesn't belong to you. It's just like I tell like clients, everything in the backpack that you carry of life, you'll be surprised how much belongs to you and then what does not belong to you. In my journey, I didn't look at things as backpacks. Literally, I went inside my head. It was like mountains and mountains of laundry that I had to go through. These little, like, literally, this is the scenario. I was like, I had to look inside myself, and then it's like mountains of laundry that had words and had sentences or things that happened. And I only had 2 washing machines, but every time I cleanse one like bag, another washing machine will pop up to help me with the others, and so on and so forth. But each washing machine had forgiveness, patience, gratitude, like all the list of things that we take for granted sometimes. It's okay to love yourself. It's okay to be selfish with you because it's a privilege to know you. Like all these things that we're told that it's not right to have because you won't get rewarded for it. But you shouldn't do something for a reward. You should do it because it's what you want to do as a person, and it's something that you feel like is good for you. But just the whole thing, just understand that when you go through this life authentically, sometimes, and then this is again, excuse my French, you're gonna be pissing in people's cereal that really did not think that you would do it. I know that's a very bad image, but that's just how it is. There's some people that feel like you owe them something, and in actuality, it's not your responsibility, and it's not your assignment. It's theirs. And then the more you take up God's job, the more of a headache that you're gonna have. And it's not, the more you take Spirit's job, God's job, the more you're gonna have a headache because it leaves you're blocking what they're supposed to learn. So when you have these situations, take a breath, think about it. reassure yourself of who you are. Make sure that you have sustainable people around you, i.e., Tia. Make sure you have a Tia around you or a me around you, or just the people that not only check you respectively in public, but in private as well. Because you're going to need those people going to where you're trying to go. And you're not going to need the people that's going to try to help you self-sabotage yourself. And the sooner you get that notion, the sooner your life will start handing you out more lemonade rather than limes, even though they make a good margarita. However, you need more lemonade in life, a lot of sweeter things. So, do you? Okay, here's the last question of the night, T, and this is the question I ask everybody: if you could talk to, or if you could give advice to a person, a certain level of your life, like all the sheddings you've done, in your period of your life, what advice would you give them and why? And this is talking about for you yourself. If you could talk to that little part of yourself, what would you tell them?
You are only responsible for yourself. You're not responsible for anybody else outside of you. If you choose to help other people, that is their blessing and your choice. But don't ever do it thinking they're going to give that in return. And although that doesn't really fully apply, because I've always just done things because I want to. But a lot of times people tend to do things they expect something in return to. But yeah, if everybody was just to be responsible for themselves, life would be a lot easier and more happy, because not only are we in our own power, we get to make decisions that align to us, and it's not personal. Because a lot of times people tend to take things personally. And for me, because I'm so sensitive to energy and emotions, I pick that up and I keep thinking like, oh, I need to help them. I need to be there for them. But it isn't my responsibility to do that for them. I'm doing it because I want to, because I care about them. But in no way should they ever feel like they are entitled to that. And that's what I had to learn, is that people were expecting so much from me. And I felt like I owed them that, even though there was no reason to. But, you know, having a savior complex when I was younger definitely kind of added on that. But yeah, so if you just realize and learn most of the stuff that like other people put on you is not for you to be responsible for. And that also means like you're probably gonna have people who don't like you. You're gonna have people who's like, what? Like, no, you're supposed to help me because everybody helps me. That's very entitled, by the way. Leave them.
If you have okay, so and it's like, and this is a sign for the ones watching the live or listening in on recording, like for like physical podcast recording. There is a book called The Four Agreements. I encourage you to read that, because that book in itself helped me in so many ways to make sure I understood what was my responsibility and what was not my responsibility. Another book that I ran into that talk about boundaries, get some type of situation, boundaries. It is a Christian based book because it does reference some scripture a lot sometimes, but it teaches you on what boundaries and things are set, how to set them, and what actually belongs to you. I'll put two alternatives for people, like for those that are Christian and then those that are that are in the spiritual spectrum. I'll have all that linked in the bio of this video as well as in the show notes. So we love you, Tia. As always, you will be my extra special guest no matter what. You are stuck with us. You are officially and most extraordinarily a part of the Shadow Corner family. And we love you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, no problem. As always. All right, we're gonna take you out here. Bye for now. Thank you, everybody that has tuned in to Shadow Corner for this episode. Understandably, yes, this is a long-winded episode, but it is needed in this world that we're living in right now. There's a lot of people that's using their gifts for the wrong intentions. And sometimes that can be in the form of manipulation. Sometimes that can also be in the form of not knowing your worth. So you follow instead of becoming the leader that you're meant to be. So I encourage you to shut the projections down at its ankles. Like, don't even leave it chance to breathe. Because, yes, a moment that it's spoken, you can't get it back, but you can shut down what its intent is. Expectations, you need to be a lot more kind to yourself. You can have expectations, but it doesn't mean that you have to have some given to you and you're not responsible for them. So I encourage you today to heed Tia's wisdom and to hear our wisdom and then move forward in your life. Know that you got this, you have everything plus more. And like that, we're out. I'll see you next week.